All right. So yeah, I presented. I have a little thing here. If I can go full screen. Nope. Can you go full screen again? On the left? Oh, all right. This whole Yosemite thing is new to me. Yeah, so I'm Chris McClelland. I work at a company called Thought Industries. I'm the CTO there, but it's kind of a joke because there's like 2 of us. Some guy just started Monday, so there's 3 developers and like 4 business guys. So title's a bit of a joke. But what Thought Industries does is we allow you to create and sell online schools. It's pretty cool. You can check us out at thoughtindustries.com. So we built pretty large app with 2 guys. It's me and a front-end guy. We have all sorts of templates, components, routes, models, controllers, and views. So I've learned a couple things doing all that, which I'd share with you right now. First up is Ember data, which I've been struggling with lately, so I'm not happy too much with it right now. But overall, I don't want to discount what Igor and gang are doing there. I think they're really doing some really great, complicated stuff. But overall, I think it's really great for simple use cases, but it's kind of still the Wild West. It's not nearly the same with Ember as far as breaking changes are concerned. There are a lot of breaking changes in every beta release that there is. It's really a very steep upgrade path. We're stuck right now on beta 8, and they're all the way up to beta 11 right now. And I tried, spent a couple hours yesterday and over the last month trying to upgrade slowly, but I've been failing pretty miserably. I'm just hitting a bunch of different Ember bugs, which sucks. But it used to be a lot worse. So the place it's in right now, I think, is really great. And I think it is slowly getting better and better, but it's still kind of rough. And I don't know if there are really better options out there. I've been looking at Ember Orbit. I believe, Gordon, you have EPF. Is that right? Which I haven't looked at too much, but there are definitely alternatives out there that I think might be worth checking out at this point in time. This kind of sums up my feelings about Ember data. This is just an issue that was opened up 6 days ago. You can go check out. It just says pretty much beta 11 breaks quite a lot of app-side code. So upgrade path is not there, / is really steep. If you are going to use Ember data, the only real recommendation I have is that you should try to sideload your data instead of embed it. So this is an example of embedded data here, where you can see there's a user and there's a profile here, which is kind of embedded in the response, and there could be an array of comments as an example. This in Ember data right now is pretty rough. This is what I naturally gravitated towards when I was first trying out Ember data, and I found it was really buggy and overall not what Ember data wanted you to do. Ember data wants you to do this kind of thing, where you can see the user model is here and the comments in the profile have been split out into separate, it's basically sideloaded, is what they call it. So do that if you can. A little side note, RethinkDB, which is I think a really cool database, makes this kind of transformation really easy. Regardless of how you're storing it in the back end, you can display it for Ember data in this way really, really easily. As far as the router is concerned, it's really the first spot that I start at whenever I'm trying to, basically, if I want to add something to the app, I'm like, okay, what does the URL look like? So that's where I start, and it's basically, I think, one of the most powerful parts of Ember, definitely also one of the most complicated parts. The key things I think to understand are really when there are a whole lot of hooks, like model and setup controller and all sorts of things like that. And it's really important, I think, to understand when they get fired, when they don't get fired, and the order that they get fired in. And I also think it's really important how to understand how to structure the router as far as when to use resource versus when to use a route, and when to nest your resources. And you can also nest routes these days, which is pretty cool and something I haven't done. That's a more recent development. As far as controllers are concerned, I see a lot of people that I've tried to been teaching Ember, switching up object controller and array controller and not really understanding when to use what. So I think it's really important to really get that down, really understand what an object controller is, what an array controller is, and how that relates to your model. And the way we've been doing it is generally we put stateful actions here, something like if you enter an editing state, something that isn't really persisted to the backend. And if it is persistent to the backend, I generally move that action to the route. Ember itself doesn't really, it allows you to do both, but that's what we found works the best for us. This is another thing that I've seen a lot of code online. I look at blog posts a lot and things like that. I see a lot of people doing this kind of thing where they'll want to do something on like did insert element or init or any of these hooks provided by Ember. This is an example that just calls super and sets inserted to true on, let's say, a component, for example. And the issues with this is really easy to forget the super line, and then your app breaks, and you're like, I don't really understand what's going on sometimes, especially if you forget it on init or something like that. It's not really clear, I think, what the function is doing, whereas something like this, I think is much better, where you can basically name the function, which I think is really nice. You can see it's named, mark is inserted right there, and then you just throw on did insert element at the end, and then there's no need for super at all, which I think is really great. Computer properties overall, I think they're super great. I think you should really take a lot of time learning what they are, what they do, how they work, and use them all the time. The only gotchas I'd say are, don't forget if you're doing a computer property on an array, you need to use at each or the little square braces. I forget those myself. I've seen a lot of other people just forget them and then wonder why your computer property is not working. Computer properties also have setters, which I don't know if you guys have used very often or not. But right now they're a little cray-cray, and I would recommend avoiding them entirely if you can. Observers, so these things, I don't know, these are just one of those things that looks really cool and really powerful, but overall we found that they're really loosey-goosey. And what I mean by that is that you really don't know where this thing has been changed from or why this thing is firing. Just kind of like, oh, it fired, and you really don't, it's really separated from everything else. There's no clear path as far as why this thing has changed, so why this observer is firing. So I found it really, really unpredictable. And they usually fire super early, way earlier than I want them to. And they fire much, much more often than I expect. Usually if something becomes null for like, even for an instant, and then becomes like fulfilled, then it will fire for the null and for the fulfilled. So you need to, I don't know, I would try to avoid them if you can, and use computer properties or actions depending on what you're trying to do. But really sometimes they're entirely unavoidable, so you just kind of have to live with it. Components, they're really great. I really don't have any negatives at all. I think you really need to shove everything you can in a component. So we do a lot of this kind of thing. You can see there's just a whole series of nested components here. And this works really, really great for us. Views, overall, we don't really use them at all. We use it for setting like a class name on a container. But other than that, I would use a component instead. If you recall in the first slide, we had 8 total views. That's really, really not used at all. We have hundreds of components in comparison. Templates, this is an interesting one. I just read that this is deprecated in Ember 2.0. Basically, if you're using an each like this, you can see here how there's no, basically if you don't provide a variable name, it will change the context of everything within the each. So this first name and last name is coming directly off of each user. And this is, I think it's really hard to tell what the context is, and this is deprecated. So instead, try to do something like this, and you should be a lot happier. And you won't run into any deprecations in Ember 2.0. which is great. As far as debugging Ember is concerned, I found that just throwing a debugger line in there to see what's up really, really helps. I've also found that switching between Firefox and Chrome especially can give you kind of wildly different error messages. And I thought that, I don't know, either or. Sometimes I'm in Chrome and I'm getting an error and it doesn't make any sense to me, but then I go over switch to Firefox. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Especially when it comes to undefined and things like that. So just try switching between them both, and you should do pretty well. Don't be afraid to just dig into the source code. Dig into the source of Ember, Ember data a lot. Just really try to figure out and just litter it with like console logs just to see what's up and why I'm running into this issue. A lot of people love the Ember inspector. I've never found much use of it myself, but I think it's worth checking out and playing with for sure. One, I think, interesting thing that's unique to Ember apps that we've run into in production is that we get a log whenever an error occurs. And basically what we've seen is we try to reproduce what the error was. And sometimes when we're testing it, and when we're building the functionality, everything works great. But if you go through and do it a certain way, a very, very specific way, or like enter the same controller twice, for example, you can reproduce the error that way, which I thought was interesting and kind of different than a lot of more server-side apps. So that's it. I have a demo now. I can show you the product that we're doing. If I can exit out of this mode. No? How do I exit? I can't see that top corner. Control Command F. There we go. All right, cool. Cool. Yeah. So here is our application. This is just one example. This is an online cooking school that Taste of Home built. You can see we have this is called the microsite or the public site, which is basically just like a home page, and there's course pages and there's a course catalog and things like that, support pages and other things. Here's another example. This is a craft beer brewer who has an online, basically how to brew beer online, which is pretty cool. Same kind of idea. You can kind of see how they look vaguely different from each other. They're all fairly customizable. Here's it's a parenting and like, birthing classes online. So there's kind of a wide range of different people that we have on the site, which I think is really interesting. Here's one about tea that just launched last week. I really don't understand what it is, but sure is interesting. The learning view itself, I can show you that. So this is where things get really interesting, I think. So here's an example of the Taste of Home, one of the Taste of Home schools. This is where it really gets all embery. So on page load, I'll refresh here. What we do is essentially load this whole course. And right now this course is tips, tricks, and techniques from the test kitchen. So what we do in Ember Data is we load this whole, basically every single part of this course here. And you can see how you can just click next through and everything works really great. Things like this I think are really cool with Ember, that I can just, for example, refresh this page and that next session's thing will still be there, which I think is really great, and something that I think you would forget about or just not do using something other than Ember. So yeah, basically you can see a whole bunch of different kinds of types of interactions that we built. This is a recipe, for example. There's all sorts of little things in here. Which I think, yeah, that was a slideshow back there. Some pretty interesting, cool stuff, and you can see how the page hasn't really refreshed at all, and everything just kind of pops in instantly, which I think is really great. And I can show you, this is what the data looks like. So when you load that page, this is the endpoint that we're hitting, and essentially what we're doing with Ember Data is loading the main course itself, and then we're loading each lesson, section, and then all the different lesson types, so videos, text, images, recipes, slideshows, and quizzes within this thing. And they're all just loaded all at once, which I think is pretty cool. So this is like the recipe I was showing you, for example. And everything is very, very side-loaded. This is embedded in here, and all of the rest of these are all side-loaded in here, which is pretty cool. So it's kind of a neat way of loading, I think, a whole course instead of loading individual pages all at once. So we know, the user is going to be interested in this thing. So we're just going to give it to them all at once. So I can show you the actual building of a course, which is where things get really cool. So I'm an admin right now, just on a test instance locally. I can show you creating a course, for example. So yeah, basically a course consists of many sections and then lessons. And then there are pages underneath each lesson. So you see how it's kind of just really easy, I think, to build a course. And I think some of the cool things that Ember in particular allows us to do. So if I'm building a quiz here, for example, and then let's add another question here, like a true, false. And then I think one of the really cool things is that, I don't know if you guys can see this, but down here is a miniature preview of the quiz that you're building right there. It's very similar to, I don't know if you guys have built like a PowerPoint presentation. You can see the little slides of your presentation. And I thought this was really, really cool and something that I don't think I could accomplish without Ember, or at least another similar library. And one of the other really cool things that I can just click preview in the top right here, and it just pops in. And this is like exactly what the learner view looks like. And you can actually just take the quiz right there and see your results. And then you can also just go back and resume editing right there. So I think overall that really, I don't know, just a nice, interesting way of building out a course. I don't think I could have really done it without Ember in this way. But yeah, that's all I have. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me. Yeah, so this is all just component driven. Both this mini preview and the actual preview itself here. Basically, we have a TI topic component, and with some CSS wizardry, you can shrink the display of that thing significantly to do that. And then for this preview, it literally just renders, TI topic attached to the topic that you are building. So it's essentially the same data in CSS. Yeah, for the mini one. Yeah, it's the exact same data. It's just it's all data bound. So this is one topic you're dealing with, and down here is again the same topic, and it's just shrunk with CSS. That's it, which is pretty cool, I think. Anybody else? Yeah. Yeah, this is Redactor, which is a pretty okay WYSIWYG text editor. I really wouldn't recommend it, honestly. I mean, if all you want is text editing, great, and you don't want to customize it all, then use Redactor. I think it's the best out there. But if you actually want to customize it, I don't know. Don't use it. It's my recommendation. Yeah. So this has been about 6 months. We've been working on this since about March or so. I hired a guy in April for the front end and taught him Ember. He actually went to EmberCon. And so that was that. And then it's been working out pretty well so far. Yeah.
Your image and video uploading on the client side, or is it?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So we currently we are using a Node.js backend And for image and video uploading, we send that right back to the back end. But on the for the user side of things, you can upload like a profile picture, and you can upload assignments and things like that, and that is shuttled off straight to S3, which I think we want to do for videos and images too. It's just they're built at separate times, so that's how it ended up going. We just added assignments and profile pictures. So, but yeah. Anybody else? Well, cool. Thanks so much. If you have any questions, definitely hit me up. I'll be right there.
If you need to go to the bathroom,
I can let you in.
Yeah. Yeah. So you need to talk to some. Who's here from classmates? Okay, so see one of these guys because they have to leave to the bathroom. So
I stay there and watch the whole time.
I do want to say thanks to you guys. Thanks, classmates, for having us again. It's really great. It's really good to be down here. It's in the town. So these guys are going to go next, and then Gordon's going to talk after this. Anybody else got any other questions? It's good to see a bunch of you guys. Yeah. What are you guys doing? Who's new to Ember? Okay. How much of that? Would you like a little bit? Yeah, I felt like. Did you understand that? Have you seen enough of Ember to understand what this was supposed to be about? Okay. I had training from. Right. Okay. 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 Great. Yeah, and definitely ask. We'll hang out some more. And if you got more questions a little bit earlier than some of that stuff, then let us know. I know that it is a component more, but that's what that intends to be. What are you guys building? What are you guys working on?
Yeah, this is using Ember right now.
Yeah, who is Ember in production?
What you guys all
Okay.
internal tool. I do that for
Great.
Dave, can you repeat what they said?
These guys have got an alpha that's going to go to beta soon. Production. Gordon's had a couple of apps. 3, 2.
I'll talk a little bit.
Okay. Gordon here has an app in production. Yeah. Once has an app in production. There.
We're having group one. Absolutely.
Group 1 over here. Do we just want to talk about their apps?
Oh, ours is a tool for IP attorneys.
Classmates.com has stuff in production. Everybody else want to talk about this stuff? These guys back here have an app that does email migration. And not just email migration, but also covers and context and all that stuff. Yeah.
Just disable we got the entire UI in Ember and just turn on the
Yeah.
We'll plug on it. Years ago.
That's
fine. Good. Doing most of it.
Brilliant. You ready, Jake?
Since Jason brought it up. Since Jason gets back.
Okay.
Some more beer. And water.
Sure. This is